I would like to welcome Leslie Solomonian, who is a naturopathic doctor. She is an incredibly persistent activist, human being, woman. Uh, this is what she says. I know she's a woman. Um, she's a Unitarian-Universalist. She's a naturopathic doctor. She's a rebel. I know that. Uh, who seeks to help individuals, communities, and the planet reach their fullest potential. She co-founded NEST, the Naturopathic Doctors for Environmental and Social Trust. She was also one of the founders of Extinction Rebellion in Toronto. To support the naturopathic profession to engage in advocacy for social and ecological determinants of planetary health. And she says that Naturopathic Doctors for Environmental and Social Trust is dedicated to promoting the health of all living beings, communities, and the environment through sustainable, socially conscious strategies. So we're thrilled, and they're thrilled to be a partner in the Just Eat It Challenge as it fulfills our mission of collaboration and education and is an expression of their values and principles through the lens of food. And what could be better than that? So, Leslie, I'm going to pass the feather on to you, and I'm looking forward to the marvelous things that you have to say. Thanks for coming on.
Wow, wonderful introduction. Thank you, David. The context of the bigger picture here is that when I was in my first year of medical school, David was one of my profs. He happened to teach me public health, and I just this term completed my master's degree in public health. So it's come full circle. So as David mentioned, I am a naturopathic doctor, which isn't just my profession. It's very much part of my identity and how I live my life. I am one of the co-founders of Naturopathic Doctors for Environmental and Social Trust, which, as was mentioned, was formed in order to galvanize and mobilize naturopathic doctors to engage in advocacy. So I want to give you a little bit of background about the relationship between naturopathic medicine and planetary health. The central tenet of naturopathic medicine is to take our cues from nature. If we don't provide our bodies with the conditions that are necessary for optimal health, so things like adequate sleep and nutrition and movement, then our bodies will be less able to maintain normal homeostasis, and this ultimately leads to disease. Naturopathic doctors tend to view symptoms that the body experiences as indicators of imbalance. So the therapeutic goal is to alleviate suffering and to alleviate symptoms, but ultimately it's to correct the root cause of the disease so that the body is more able to reattain balance on its own. The same principle applies to the planet. If humans do not operate within the natural systems of the planet, and we disrupt its natural systems then of homeostasis, this is due to all sorts of things like mass deforestation, soil depletion, poisoning of the water. These human-caused disruptions cause the imbalances that we're seeing in planetary systems. And this leads to disease on a planetary level and also on an individual level. COVID-19, this current pandemic, is a direct consequence of these imbalances, as are increasingly frequent and severe weather events, species extinctions, and even conflict and human migration that we see in unprecedented numbers. The truth of the matter is that all planetary systems, social, economic systems, like I was speaking about, cultural systems, these are all subcomponents of the overall ecologic system, and thus it is subject to the same laws of nature. So as Guy pointed out earlier, economics don't have laws, but nature does, and everything we do must adhere to those laws. We know again that breakdown of these natural systems also lead directly to negative human health impacts. If that is the only thing we care about and not the planet in its own right, planetary destruction has been correlated with a litany of human disease outcomes and overall reduction in health and well-being. And perhaps that is all that we should care about. It's commonly noted that the Earth will be just fine without us. It will regenerate if we were to go extinct. And so as genuinely altruistic as many environmentalists are, we are really fighting here for our own survival. So both in terms of the individual health and in terms of planetary health, this is fundamentally due to an anthropocentric worldview that places humans outside and superior to the natural systems and natural laws. These same worldviews that say that a fast food cheeseburger is good nutrition, or that we need a new wardrobe every season, or that we need the latest phone, these things lead to planetary destruction and individual negative health consequences, either here or somewhere else on the planet. The bottom line is that we've seen a rapid acceleration of climate destruction in the past 100 or so years, and it's arguable as to when all of this started. But I would argue, and I think that Guy kind of did very strongly allude to this, that this is fundamentally due to a pursuit of wealth concentration and the proxy for that, which is quote unquote quality of life. So setting aside the point that the ultimate consequence of planetary devastation is harmful to the health and well-being of us all, the reality is that infinite economic growth is impossible on a finite planet. So the question then is what underlies the drive for that infinite growth? I would say capitalism. The attempt by some to concentrate wealth on a planet that has finite resources. The underlying driver of messaging and values and policy that perpetuate a culture of entitlement, conspicuous consumption, conspicuous waste that enrich few and impoverish most, means that over time, all of us are impoverished. Basic economic principles tell us that any pursuit of wealth or growth in one part of the system is dependent on exploitation or oppression somewhere else. And that oppression could be of people, of land, of other species. And those consequences or harms might impact now or somewhere in the future. The other piece that's really critical here is that those who are systematically marginalized, oppressed, and exploited in the free market are also disproportionately vulnerable to the consequences of ecological breakdown for a variety of reasons. We can't then be talking about promoting green tech or the oxymoronic idea of green capitalism as a solution. We have to seek to operate within natural systems, within an economy that is dictated by ecologic justice. So this might all sound very strange, given that I'm a doctor and not an economist or a politician, but the fundamental truth is that the social and ecological factors that determine the majority of health outcomes are negatively impacted by capitalism. Social, economic, and ecological factors predict the vast proportion of health of all individuals. And so this cartoon to me makes perfect sense. We can't dismantle industrial capitalism because then we wouldn't have antidepressants. We can't dismantle big pharma because then we wouldn't have COVID vaccines. I'm not anti-pharma, I'm not anti-vaccine, I've got my first shot. But the reality is that if we had chosen to operate within natural systems, the likelihood of needing antidepressants and vaccines for COVID probably wouldn't have existed. So the other piece I want to mention is that, yes, we know that wealth does correlate to health, but this is true only to a point. The inequitable distribution of wealth in a population is actually a negative predictor of overall health and well-being. And so the argument that we must grow economically to improve the health is actually not possible and works in the opposite direction. So we know that there is a reciprocity between planetary health and human health. We know that there is a very critical intersection. I just had a paper published on this, and I think it will be put in the chat, that talks about the ethical, critical intersection of social and ecological justice. We have to work towards all of these things simultaneously. And in fact, we are likely not going to be successful if we don't. All of these things are connected. We are all part of a complex, interdependent system. It all has to move in the same direction. Healing requires an appreciation of how that system works. I like this particular image. It's taken from the cover of a book by someone named Daniel Christian Wall. It's called Designing Regenerative Cultures. And his message, this was the outcome of a PhD that he did. He wrote 2 massive volumes for his thesis, so he has lots to say. But really his idea underscores the idea that transformation requires all of us, all academic disciplines, all sectors of society, all social structures, all economic classes. every geographic region of the world. We need all of us. And principles of the planetary health movement emphasize the critical role of justice in this work, the necessity to center historically marginalized and exploited individuals, species, ecosystems, and populations. Focusing on regeneration of land is an excellent example of how we can do this work. There are many co-benefits of nourishing the land in the form of improving biodiversity and pollination, of promoting local food security and sovereignty, of capturing carbon, of course, localizing the economy, stabilizing soil, protecting against severe weather events, not to mention the tremendous proximal mental and physical health benefits of gardening and being outside. Last year and over the past month, Nest and Extinction Rebellion in Toronto last year partnered with a local tree distributor, and this year in partnership with Climate Fast and Drawdown and many of the other organizations participating tonight, to donate native fruit-bearing trees to community gardens in Toronto in order to elevate our capacity to benefit from all of these reverberating co-benefits. This is one of my favorite cartoons. The idea is that even if climate change is a hoax, all of those climate change deniers, you're all here, so I doubt that's you, there are many, many compelling reasons to do this work. And that all brings us back to the idea of values. If we consider ourselves as being part of a system, and we are humbly part of that interdependent system that operates deliberately within natural systems, if we prioritize justice between humans across species, across time, we will be more likely to be successful. There's no coincidence that there's a resonance here with Indigenous principles. So the last thing I want to say is that we invite you to join us in rewilding from tonight on to International Environment Day. The link will be in the chat. Please come visit us and join us.
Thanks, Leslie. It's always such a pleasure to hear you speak, and your activism is really inspirational for everybody. You don't stop. It's fantastic. Thank you.